How does it feel for you? Is it different for women in general walking down the street in the UK? Do you feel eyes on you? I'm thinking of the mass immigration issue.
It's definitely changed. I think, when I used to walk down the street, well, I first of all, I cover up a lot more than I used to. I'm a lot older now. This was like 98. This was, 26 years ago. It was a long time ago. So things were so different. I was living in London. I was modelling. I was living in London. I would take a night bus home after a club. I would not be afraid walking out in the evenings. I'd be out with my friends in little hot pants, and I would dress how I wanted to dress, and I felt safe. I didn't feel like, I was going to get pulled and attacked by somebody. Just things are very different now. And the way, there used to be banter. Like, I would joke around, like I'd walk past a building site, and if I didn't get a wolf whistle, I'd probably walk back past again. I'd be like, oh, what's wrong with me today? But I wouldn't joke about that now, because it's not the same kind of banter. It's almost creepy. It's people being followed or people being harassed. And it's a very different kind of banter to the way it was like 25 years ago. It's just, that's not the same. And it's probably because, it's not British people doing it, having a joke about. And it's... Look, take Bournemouth. Bournemouth's my hometown. I was 16 years old. I would hang out on the beach. Girls get on the beach now. It's just a fact. They go into the water, 15, 16, 17-year-old, 18-year-old girls are in the water. They'll get molested by people. And they won't give you a description of who did it, which is, pretty much the description itself. I would go to the beach. Women would be topless on the beach. At that point, I wasn't actually topless on the beach, but women would be topless on the beach. I'd walk through Bournemouth Gardens in the dark, back into the town centre, and I'd call my parents to come and pick me up. And I would feel safe, and I would be safe doing it. Now people are getting stabbed everywhere. You've got a hotel called the Roundhouse that's full of illegals or asylum seekers.
Is that one of those hotels that the government has paid to do that?
Yes, yeah, called the Roundhouse. And you've got that. And you don't want to walk past, you'd never want to walk past there in the night. It's not safe being anywhere. Just last weekend, two men got stabbed about 7:30 p.m. We know that down on the beach, 2 women got stabbed, 1 died just before Christmas. It's kind of all been forgotten about. So
why do you think the government, you mentioned that they don't say who, other countries do, Denmark does, for example, they collect data on different ethnicities and crime, and it shows that immigrants or new immigrants from Middle Eastern countries, for example, are way overrepresented in committing these crimes. Why do you think the UK won't cover crimes that way?
They don't want us seeing the stats, do they? They know that because then you can't, when you start calling out actual facts, you can't be called racist because you're calling out the facts. So it's just better not to have the facts. So when we use our own observations and use our own reality and our own experiences, then someone else can say, well, that's not true, that you're just being racist. But if they have all the numbers and they have all the facts, then you can't say that. It's like if you look per capita at who's taking the most benefits. It's not the British people that are on the most benefits. It's migrants, And I'll say again, I lived in Los Angeles and I'd moved to America. When I had my visa, I had to be working to be able to retain that visa. And if I couldn't work or I was no longer sponsored by my model agency, because you have a sponsor who sponsors your visa and you have to work for them and you can only work for them. If I wasn't working for them, I'd have to leave the country. I couldn't go and work for Uber Eats. I couldn't go and work for, anything else. I'd have to work for my model agency. And there was one time when I think I'd come back to England to do a TV show. And I was away for a few months. And I went back to America and my visa had been revoked. I didn't even know. I was like, they'd pulled me aside and they questioned me and they're like, sorry, your visa's been revoked. And that's because I hadn't been going on my casting. So, I did have a return ticket back. I was only there that particular time for 2 weeks. So they let me in and they said, next time if you come in, you're going to have to get another visa or you're just not going to be allowed back. So I had to get another visa. I had to get another agent. But it's like, you come here and even, if you stop working, then you just go and claim benefits. It's insane. And then when I got my green card, again, it was like you couldn't claim benefits ever. I had to have all these tests. I had to have a HIV test. I had to have a TB test because I'd had a TB vaccine. I had to then have a chest x-ray because I showed TB antibodies. So all of this happened when I got my green card. And it's like, why does none of this happen in the UK? Why is it that these people can just come across? You've got the illegals coming across, then you've got the students coming across and bringing their entire families. Then you've got people that come over here and aren't working and then start claiming benefits off the taxpayers' money. So, it's just a completely and utterly messed up system.
I'm pleased you mentioned the other way round when you went to America and you understood their system and you understood you had to play by their rules. And it's really, really hard. I think that's what people forget. If an English person or someone from anywhere wants to pop off and go and live in America, Australia, most of these countries, it's not easy. And we've always understood that. And we have to play by their rules. Yeah. I mean, people have said to me when I've said this about mass immigration, how would you have felt when you were living in Argentina if somebody had come and said, you've got to leave? And I said, I would be gutted because I had my life there, but I would have understood that them's the rules. Yeah. If my visa wasn't right at any point, that's the rules of the country. Yeah. And for some reason, I don't know, we've inverted that when it comes to immigrants. I suppose there's the aspect of they're all victims kind of thing. So we're bringing in refugees, but when they're coming from France, I don't understand,
Albania, where's the war in Albania? You say that, but then it's like, I'm a refugee because I somebody and the people in my village are going to kill me, and that's why why can't you go back? Because my nephew doesn't like chicken nuggets in Albania.
That's not one of them.
Yes, that was literally one of them. His son, or I think it was his son, not his nephew. His son didn't like the foreign chicken nuggets. That was actually something as to why.
I'm going to look into that.
Yeah, I promise you.
I'm going to fact check this. It might have been a satire.
Yeah, that's the thing. Sometimes you can't tell the difference between parody and reality anymore. But this was a real thing. It was like, didn't like the chicken nuggets. But you see it a lot when these criminals do something heinous and then they're like, well, we can't go back to our country because, our village is not going to accept us because we've done something so awful. Yeah. Well, why are we accepting it here?
There was the guy who had, I don't want to say the word too often on YouTube, but I suppose molested his own son, was it? And he couldn't go back because of that. That was mad. Get that guy out the country, out the country. That's ridiculous. It's a concern, isn't it? And because people are not being encouraged to adapt to our values, and that's why we're seeing these issues with women. Did you see that Ross Kemp thing? I've mentioned it a couple of times before, but Ross Kemp, he went to somewhere.
It was somewhere in Africa, and he was asking the men about right? Is that it? Yeah. And their concern was like, I might get the woman pregnant, or it would bring shame if we got the woman pregnant. There was no concern for the woman. Is that the one?
Yeah, they couldn't even, because Ross was saying, you shouldn't be doing this to women. And they were like, well, I suppose you're right. I suppose you're right because I might get them pregnant or I might get a disease. And I was like, no, you shouldn't be doing it to women because it's bad for them. And it was just a foreign idea for them.
It just went over their head. Like, they just couldn't understand. They're like, as you said, just that blank look of like, yes, the diseases or getting her pregnant, that would be bad. It was just, crazy.
It's mad. And that's what people they do not understand. I think the left, they really don't understand. They don't want, it's almost like they're not brave enough to be able to face up to what humanity can be like in certain cultures.